Welcome in the PYC for the first of two WPIAL Championship previews. Today we will specifically be going over the 4 and 6A championships for this weekend. We will recap some of the regular seasons for the playoff teams in 4 and 6A, go over the brackets, and explain how we got to the championship matchups that we have, and then we will preview the championship matchups between McKeesport, Aliquippa, and Pittsburgh Central Catholic, North Allegheny. Plus, a special interview with our own Vinnie Heller with two-time state championship winner from Bell Vernon, Colton Lee, as he gives his thoughts on the WPIAL championships for this weekend. Don't go anywhere. PYC is next. Welcome in the PYC for our WPIAL Championship special. I'm Stone Manges alongside Cole Keller and Vinnie Heller. They are our WPIAL experts, and we're going to be going over the 4 and 6A championships. We're going to start by discussing some of the regular seasons from these playoff teams, not necessarily just the ones that made the championships, but there are some teams in here in 4 and 6A that had some really nice regular seasons that didn't make the championship game. Cole, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, so first we're going to start with the lowest seed in 4A, Chartiers Valley. Vinnie and I were talking about it a little bit. Great season, but really they were the last seed and really the worst team in the 4A bracket to make it in. They did have a good season, rebounded off of a few bad years, but overall they were no match for McKeesport. And at the end, there's not many teams who can stop Keemont Spell.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Char Valley, they got athletes, guys like Julius Best, but that's not going to match up against McKeesport's own Keemont Spell. Through and through, they clinched, beating Ringgold at the last game of the season to clinch a playoff berth they didn't make it last year. They lost to Ringgold last year, actually. But through and through, their season's done. So if I had to take a move on, I'd go right to TJ and Mars. Or excuse me, you wanted to go seed by seed, correct?
Yeah.
So that takes us to Aliquippa, who we will see in the WPIAL Championship this weekend, Saturday at noon. So, you got a guy like MJ, their quarterback, guy that takes a couple weeks out, can't really see the fulfillment of the team, but then you beat a tough team like Trinity, Trinity, a team that won their own conference on the last play of the game. That's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, Trinity specifically, they were one of the teams in their conference that struggled outside of conference play, but then they had a really nice conference record. They actually finished 5-0, and you mentioned it, winning that conference on the final play. Another team that I wanted to talk about was Newcastle. They ran into Montour. They beat them 14-1, a one-point game, and then they moved on to play Aliquippa, who shut them out. They won 14-0, and then Aliquippa ultimately meeting McKeesport in the championship game. Any 6A teams, either teams that made the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs, that you were interested in talking about?
Good.
No,
I'll take it. I think the main one here is Central Catholic. That 6A bracket, it's so slim. You know what I mean? It almost ends up feeling like a VIP club. Can't get in unless you're that guy. And Central Catholic, they've dominated 6A through and through, year in, year out. I can't say I think North Allegheny is going to stun them, because I really don't. But, Central Catholic's just one of those top dogs. So,
Yeah, and I have to agree with Vinnie. North Allegheny from the get-go in the KDK Kickoff Classic, I knew they were going to have a down year, playing it very close with a team like Woodland Hills. Now granted, no disrespect to Woodland Hills, but Art Walker has a established program there where he will defeat teams like Woodland Hills very convincingly. And then seeing North Allegheny play again against Pine Richland and seeing Art Walker's worst ever coaching performance really put the icing on the cake, and I think Central will just have, they really just have to show up.
Yeah, Central, the number 1 seed in all of 6A. North Allegheny, the number 2 seed. These guys did play once in the regular season. Pittsburgh Central Catholic took that one by a score of 21-6. The rematch will happen this Saturday at Pine Richland High School at 6 o'clock. We're really looking forward to that one. And then the 4A championship, that one we feel is going to be a little bit tighter, and we'll divulge into that a little bit more later on. We're going to take a look in our next segment at the brackets in 4 and 6A. And then we'll take a little peek into the classifications that aren't playing. That's on the next segment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to PYC. I'm Stone Manges alongside Cole Keller and Vinnie Heller. We are going to take a look at the bracket breakdown, starting with the 4A classification. As we said, the championship matchup will be McKeesport and Aliquippa. McKeesport had to go through Chartiers Valley and Thomas Jefferson to make it to the championship round, while Aliquippa took down Trinity on the road and then defeated Newcastle to take on McKeesport in the championship. So as we said, we'll start in 4A. McKeesport, the first game in this bracket, the number 1 seed going up against the number 8 seed Chartiers Valley, and they handily beat them 44-7 the score in that one.
Yeah, that was definitely a beatdown. And like we said before, Char Valley coming in, just clinching the playoff spot after that last win against Ringgold. Didn't really expect much, but, guys like Julius Best, Owen Wegrove, guys that just couldn't get the job done ultimately. McKeesport took the win.
Yeah, and Vinny and I talked about this in the first segment. Not to discredit Char Valley's season. It was a fantastic season for their school. But when you run into somebody like Keymont Spell, run into a team with Javian Robinson, and you can't get to the quarterback, Matt Miller, they're going to destroy you. And that's exactly what we've seen.
The number 4 seed Thomas Jefferson defeated the number 5 seed Mars, who had a really solid season, but they just ran into a hot team and one of the best coaches in the WPIAL, and Thomas Jefferson won that one 31-14.
Yeah, going against a field boss like Bill Cherpak. Now, I played for him, so I'm biased, but the guy's a genius, and it's hard, being a team of Mars. You see him in the playoffs, they got your whole year of film to watch and study, and that's really what Bill Cherpak is really keen on. But playing a team like that in the playoffs going against a coach like that, it's just scary, and you never really want to be in that position. So that's where TJ took the cake.
Yeah, I think this matchup was very similar for both schools. I think Mars and TJ that was a good matchup, but like a really good one, probably one of the best in 4A, especially in the first round. And I think that Mars just got beat up front. I mean, it's really hard to stop TJ's offensive line. They're always going to have a good offensive line no matter what. And with a good offensive line, you have to have a good running back. And that's where Tyler Eber steps in for TJ, and that's pretty much how they got that job done.
Yeah, Mars had a really nice season, but they ran into, as Ethan SPOZARSKI described him, as the Nick Saban of WPIAL, the head coach there for Thomas Jefferson, as they won that matchup. The number 2 seed Trinity, who, as we said, had a really strong conference schedule to get them into this playoff bracket, took on Aliquippa, and the number 7 seed upsetted the Hillers by a score of 21-14. Cole, you want to start us off and talk about this one? Yeah,
I'll start off with this one. I did think that Trinity was very good this year. I thought they improved a lot from last year. They did lose a few pieces with the Fuse kid from last year. But the problem was when you seen their out-of-conference play, it was atrocious. They went 1-4, only beating McGuffey in that non-conference outlook right there. And then their conference is just really, really bad. So they run into a team like Aliquippa, who has championship DNA. And while Aliquippa isn't the same Aliquippa team that we've seen in previous years, it's going to be really hard, especially with a team like Trinity, to beat a team like that.
Yeah, that one was a heartbreaker. I mean, Quip throwing the ball up on the last play of the game and coming down with it, that's impressive one. But more impressive is beating Trinity, in my opinion, the most well-rounded team in the Big Six Conference in 4A. And as you said, those non-conference games now, most of them, if not some of them, will become conference games, as Trinity and Thomas Jefferson have moved up to 5A after this last week. But Trinity not coming away with it, a great quarterback who I'm sure will get a ton of accolades, conference offensive player of the year. If I had to guess, I'd probably give that to Jonah Williamson.
And the final game in the first round featured 2 teams out of the Parkway Conference. The number 3 seeded Newcastle took on the number 6 seed Montour. Both of these teams had a really good conference season, both finishing 4-1. Ultimately, Newcastle did defeat Montour by a score of 14-13. Cole, again, start us off and talk about this one, a 1-point contest.
Yeah, so I was there for that game, and they always say that it's hard to beat a team twice. And especially in this game, it was very evident. To start off, Montour rallied it up 14-0 going into halftime. Kai Kai Cox had to step in at quarterback because Marino Graham fell. He had to be rolled with a concussion. He was out for the remainder of the first half when it happened. Comes back out in the second half, and Newcastle was able just to get it moving, and they finally found their groove. And I think a lot of that was due to elite wide receivers like Damian Harrison, like Kai Cox. That's where they really stepped up their game. And this team is very young. So even though they lost to Aliquippa, like I said, hard to beat a team twice, I think they'll be back here, especially in this conversation within the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, Newcastle, especially facing Montour, they got a running back, well-rounded. He started for 4 years, if I'm correct. But Newcastle kind of had an up and down year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they lost to West Allegheny at some point this year. That West Allegheny team who also lost to the 8th seed Char Valley. So I'm not really sure what to think. I didn't really see any teams play in person, but Newcastle, well-rounded team all around, just took it over Montour, excuse me.
Newcastle beat Montour, as we said, 14-13, and they moved on to play the number 7 seed Aliquippa at Elwood City High School, and Aliquippa shut out Newcastle 14-0 to move on to the championship game. Vinny, start us off and talk about this one, a low-scoring affair.
Again, MJ Council, quarterback for Aliquippa, he's an athlete, committed to Yale, I believe. Having those guys back on your offense, especially when you haven't, weeks prior and throughout the season, it's really good to get a grip on where you really stand in the 4A bracket, and I think that really showed out against Newcastle, and, well, like I said, proof's in the pudding. They're playing in the championship game this weekend, so that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, and a little bit to like Vinny said, and a little bit to like what I alluded to earlier, it is hard to beat a team twice, especially when Aliquippa gets their head coach back, Coach Warfield, and he's a state trooper, formerly a state trooper. He's going to instill something in those kids that the previous head coach did not have, the interim, last year. And even though Newcastle beat Aliquippa earlier in the season, 18-12, Aliquippa obviously has a chip on their shoulder, upsetting the number 2 seed, and then going into that Newcastle game, seeing that they're going to play the 3 seed, have their chance at a get back, have their chance at redemption, and ultimately they just took it from there.
And then McKeesport took down Thomas Jefferson. Vinny and I were at this game, and Keemon Spell had one of the greatest touchdown runs that I had ever seen. 7 broken tackles, took it to the house. He also had a 97-yard touchdown. McKeesport rolled in that one 28-3, and they will take on Aliquippa in the 4A state championship. Now moving on to 6A, Pittsburgh Central Catholic defeated Cannon McMillan by a score of 44-7 to move on to the championship, and North Allegheny defeated Norwin 35-17. Starting with that Pittsburgh CC Cannon McMillan game, Vinny, go over that one. CC rolled in this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, the 6A classification is so small. Like I said, 6 teams. It's just spread so thin throughout the playoffs. You get 2 teams that dominate. No one else is going to come close. Like we said, we've seen Mount Lebanon a few years back go 16-0. One of the Palco brothers coaching them as well, Eli Heinrich and Alex Texa. A star team coming out of 6A. Well, where were they next year? Nowhere to be found. Where are they now? Still nowhere to be found. And Pittsburgh Central Catholic is kind of the front runner in 6A. So.
And then Cole, North Allegheny took down Norwin 35-17 to take on Pittsburgh Central Catholic in the championship. Just go over that NA Norwin game a little bit for me.
Yeah, and even though I was harping on Coach Walker a little bit about how this NA team is not as good as his previous coached ones, beating Norwin, especially whenever you played them earlier in the season in a very close game, and in this game, I thought Norwin was going to be able to come out with that victory, so he proved me wrong. And I think NA is just too much right now for these other schools to compete with. Cannon Mac, Seneca Valley, Lebo, any of those other 6A teams. If you have a well-coached team in 6A, no matter what, you're always going to be competitive, and that's where NA was able to take the cake there against Norwin.
Well, that'll do it for our bracket breakdown. When we come back, Vinnie Heller sits down with Bell Vernon state champion, a 2-time state champion, Colton Lee, and he will give his thoughts on the WPIAL championships for this weekend, and then we will take a closer look at the 2 championship matchups coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Plead Your Case WPIAL 4A and 6A championship special. I'm Vinnie Heller here. Along with me is 2-time state, 2-time WPIAL Bell Vernon alum Colton Lee. Colton, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm doing great. So today we're just going to talk about a little bit about your experience at Bell Vernon. So we'll get right into it. Talk to me about your experience at Bell Vernon. What was it like being a part of one of the few dominant winning programs?
Yeah, it was a really cool atmosphere, especially in my time that I was there. Got to play against a lot of really good teams, play with a lot of really good players, and overall it was a great experience.
Now, a couple of those good players are really great players. 5-star Quentin Martin, one that went unnoticed, Devin Whitlock, he's at IUP tearing it up. As far as players, what about coaches? How was it playing for a fantastic coach like Coach Humpert?
Yeah, Coach Humpert was great. I mean, talk about storied coaches in the WPIAL, he's right up there with all of them, I would say,
from what I know.
Yeah, I mean, he was hard on you, but you knew he was hard on you because that's the way he was going to get the best out of you, and you're going to be a better player.
Now, transferring from playing 3A, playing 4A in a dominant 4A conference, you also face teams like Aliquippa in the championship. We'll see them this week on November 15th, this Saturday at 12:05 afternoon. How do you view the WPIAL after the fact, after you've gone from playing in a tough conference, playing in the state championship games, teams you faced? How do you see it now?
I would say now it's a lot different. Like, teams that were good are now not as good as they were. So it's always a little bit different, but I feel like that kind of happens every year. I mean, you always get a class from some random school that you've probably never heard of, and they'll make a run, and they might not win it all, but
kind of puts the team on the map, so to say. Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, as we're into the WPIAL now, we've talked about teams. Aliquippa, you've faced them. Aliquippa's playing again this Saturday in the WPIAL Championship. What do you think of that versus McKeesport?
Yeah, I mean, Aliquippa, I think they're a really good team. I don't think they're exactly the team they used to be, but I think McKeesport right now is the best, or one of, if not the best they've ever been, and I think they're looking really good to take it home.
Yeah, I agree. I witnessed Keemon Spell play last Friday, and man, that was an experience. That dude he's unlike many else. Getting in a 6A game, 6A being one of the smaller classifications, only I believe 6 teams. We got Central Catholic versus North Allegheny. I don't believe they faced off this year, but they will face off this week. This week on November 15th. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's usually those two teams meeting in the WPIAL Championship. I mean, it's been how many years now? It's been a lot. They play each other a lot. They're always back and forth who's going to win it. But, yeah, I mean, I think Central looks good this year. I think North Allegheny's a little bit having a down year. But
they do have athletes all over that team. James Harrison's son, a bunch of guys. Again, good culture team. Central Catholic, one of the best cultured teams. However, 6A, you'll see a lot of teams just come out of the blue. Mount Lebanon a few years back went undefeated 16-0 with Alex Texa and Eli Heinrich, and won the WPIAL's and the state title. And both those guys are playing at Navy now, I believe. Well, that will conclude my interview with Colton Lee. Colton, thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned on Plead Your Case to witness the rest of this episode.
Welcome back to PYC. It is time to take a closer look at the 4 and 6A championships. Starting in 4A, we have the McKeesport Tigers going up against the Aliquippa Quips. The Quips came into this bracket as the number 7 seed with an 8-3 overall record and a 3-2 conference record. They lost to 3 really good teams, Avonworth, Newcastle, and Montour. And the Quips are looking to prove a lot of people wrong in this 4A championship and looking to take down McKeesport for their 21st WPIAL title. That would be something. Cole, you want to start us off and talk about Aliquippa a little bit?
Yeah, so I have written down they lucked out getting the 7th seed. If they would have gotten the 8th or the 6th seed, might have shaken things up just a little bit more. I think that they lucked out playing a team like Trinity that they match up really well against. And like you said, chasing title number 21, they have championship DNA. Once they get in the playoffs, it's very hard to roll out the Quips, even if they're not the most electric Aliquippa team that we've seen in the past few years. And this is a rematch of like at least the past close-ish 4 or 5 years, 2021, 2022, and 2023, which was the WPIAL title, where Aliquippa and McKeesport faced off, Aliquippa getting all 3 of those games.
Now, Aliquippa, like you said, Cole, is a team you can just not count out. Regardless who the coach is, who the quarterback is, who's on the field, you can't count Aliquippa out. Last year, you come in, Aliquippa makes it WPIAL semifinals for 4A, gets stopped by TJ. Well, who stopped TJ this year? The McKeesport Tigers, and they did it pretty well. Aliquippa also, however, you lose guys like Larry Moon, IMG Academy, athlete. You lose guys like Tyke Hayes up at Penn State now. I'm sure he's doing great, but these are guys, you know, you look to build your team around, and especially the way they did, you can tell it's left that certain mark still, that smell of fresh blood still lingers in the Aliquippa waters, and they're coming for it all. There's no mistake about it. I don't think they should be scared of McKeesport regardless of Keemon Spell, but this is a very good team regardless of what seed they were in.
Well, you mentioned it. Aliquippa has that championship DNA, but the Quips are going to run into a running back who is looking to prove to not just the WPIAL world, but the college football world that he has that championship DNA. Keemon Spell, the #1 running back in the class of 2027 for McKeesport, is putting up otherworldly numbers. This kid has over 1,200 rushing yards on the season, over 27 total touchdowns on the season. And if you look at his numbers for the first 2 games of the playoffs, over 500 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. This guy is a dog, and he is looking to carry the Tigers to their 5th ever WPIAL title.
Yeah.
Good. Go.
You want me to? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the last time McKeesport was in a reasonably good spot to beat a team in the WPIAL title was in 2005 when they did defeat Woodland Hills 19-7 to get that 4th WPIAL title and eventually go on to win state, beating Liberty 49-10. And Keemon, I mean, watching him play in that KDK Kickoff Classic is just, he's phenomenal. He's one of 3 players, I say, who can touch the ball and gone. They're going to score no matter what. And a lot of people are saying, oh, they're playing Delaware Valley. That's not a good team. Delaware Valley won their district in 5A, and they beat them handedly 51-24. And Keemon ran for 331 yards and 3 touchdowns against Thomas Jefferson, which is a very well-versed team. And I just think that McKeesport has a little bit less of a, how would I say, the chip on their shoulder, because they were already here last year, so they can be a little bit more easy going into playing Aliquippa.
Yeah, if you think about it, this is the 3rd year in a row, I believe, that McKeesport has appeared in the WPIAL championship. My senior year, actually. They played Aliquippa, lost to Aliquippa. Last year, they lost to Thomas Jefferson, my former alum, and we'll see what they do this year. But Keemon Spell, guys, is the real deal. You talk about carrying his team to a win. He literally might put them on his back and carry them to the end zone and to go carry that trophy. How many broken tackles is this dude going to make? I mean, come on. You said, what, 7 broken tackles in one run?
It was like 6 or 7 tackles on that 1 touchdown run. It was something else to see that in person.
The guy, he's a special player. And when you go up against powerhouses, top 25 teams in the last 25 years, Thomas Jefferson, like I said, I'm biased, but they always have one of the best offensive fronts and defensive fronts in the WPIAL. And when you can rush for, 300 yards against that, and you have somewhat of a line that can counter that, you're the most dominant team in that classification, in my opinion.
So this is definitely the most compelling out of the 2 matchups that we are going to have at Pine Richland this weekend. And we're going to do our pick'em segment now for 4A. Cole, who do you got, Tigers or the Quips?
I have to go with McKeesport. I think, even though I don't like their quarterback play, as long as they feed Keemon, and I don't know if Aliquippa can really stop the run as well as most people think that they can, I think that McKeesport, if they get their legs churning it's going to be over from there. But I do expect this game to be pretty sloppy up until the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, and that's when McKeesport will kind of take a leap and probably finish this game leading by 2 scores.
Now, one thing you'll see with both these teams is they have athletes on the outside. Javian Robinson is a 4-star, and just guys all around Aliquippa that can make plays. We've seen it last year, McKeesport steady in the triple option. You come out against TJ last year running spread, you lose. Triple option, especially with Keemon Spell in the background, is undefeatable. If I'm McKeesport, I'm coming at in exactly that. I'm letting Keemon have a day, and they're going to take that trophy home that night.
Yeah, McKeesport, they're going to roll in this one with Spell and Robinson, both multi-star athletes and prospects in college football. They're going to take home the 2025 4A WPIAL title. Now moving on to 6A. It's a little bit of an interesting matchup here. We have Pittsburgh Central Catholic, the number 1 seed in 6A, with a 10-1 overall record, going up against the number 2 seed in 6A, the North Allegheny Tigers, coming in at 8-3. You look at these last 10 games between Pittsburgh Central and North Allegheny. Pittsburgh Central Catholic is 6-4. Their last loss coming in 2023. This team looks almost unstoppable, but North Allegheny, they did put up a good fight against the Vikings in the first matchup. That game finished 21-6 in favor of Central Catholic. Vinny, what are you looking for in this game? Does North Allegheny have enough to stop the Vikings?
See, on the outsides, I 100% would say so. You got a guy like Corey Pitts on the outside. He's a well-rounded DB. You know, he can guard your number 1s and number 2s, play a little zone if you need him to. But as I've said before, and I'll say it again, if the line don't move, no one does. Look at the beginning of the season, Central Catholic, I believe their line average is 6'5", 285. This is high school ball, guys. This is not Division I college. But they play like and they look like it. So I'm expecting a lot of ground and pound, you know, once they start stacking the box, then try to get it to your outside guys. However, I don't think Central Catholic will have much of an issue this week. I'm going with Central.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I mean, looking at their season, they completely handled Pine Richland, whether it looks close on the stat sheet or not. They beat them. And looking at the NA game, it looks a little bit rough, all things considered. But obviously, I think what Coach Lehmeyer is trying to achieve there is we're just going to beat them easy, make the game go fast. And last year we seen like a similar result in the regular season. And then come the championship, Central Catholic just blew North Allegheny out of the water. And this is Central Catholic team, 1 loss on the season. That 1 loss is to the number 1 team in 6A, LaSalle College, 23-6, which was Owen Herrick's first ever game at the high school level. And obviously there's going to be growing pains, especially when you're going up against a number 1 team in 6A. And I think Central has a very formidable slate after they beat NA to meet LaSalle again.
I would definitely have to agree. One thing you said, I just want to make a quick note on. A good team like Central Catholic, you made a very good point. They're going to run what they've been running, and they're going to tell you to come and stop it. And if you can't, well, you're not taking that trophy home at the end of the day.
So, Cole, are you going with Central Catholic in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Central Catholic. I said, I have here, how Central Catholic can win. They just show up. How North Allegheny can win. The earth explodes and only they survive.
That is definitely a comment. You mentioned it. Central Catholic's only loss of the year coming against the LaSalle College Explorers, who they're playing for the District 12 6A title this weekend as well out in Philadelphia. Central Catholic's going to roll in this one. The winner of this game will take on State College or Wilkes-Barre in the 6A state quarterfinals. That was our WPIAL 4 and 6A title preview. Thank you for tuning in to PYC. Next week, we will have the remaining WPIAL title games, so you're not going to want to miss that one. Thank you for tuning in. On behalf of Vinnie Heller and Cole Keller, I'm Stone Manges. Have a great day.